Hello, everyone. Welcome to our last Resiliency Week webinar. We'll give it a couple of minutes for people to join, and then we will kick off our presentation. All right, it's 12:02, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Good afternoon and happy Friday. Welcome to AI Virginia's Resiliency Week, presented by AI Virginia's Outreach Advisory Council. My name is Delaney Ogden, Director of Education for AI Virginia, and I will be the host helping with the webinar today. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. We will have the chat feature available to you today. So please feel free to engage with others on the call. Let people know where you're calling in from, maybe where you're working. And then in addition, we're going to have a Q&A portion after the presentation. So please make sure to use that Q&A tool if you have questions for our presenter today. And then if your connection fails or you're having connection issues, please just try to remain on Zoom. Zoom does a really great job of automatically reconnecting you if you're having issues. And then for optimum bandwidth, just make sure background apps and windows are closed, and that'll definitely help too. I'll be sending out a survey a little bit later after the session, so please let us know your feedback. We would love to hear from you. The session today has been submitted for AIACS approval, and the credits for today will be reported within 10 business days. And as I previously stated, we'll have a short Q&A period after the presentation. So be thinking of any questions for our presenter today. Now I'll turn over to Chris Warren for a few comments about Resiliency Week. Chris?
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the last day of AI Virginia's 2025 Resiliency Week speaker series. Resiliency Week is an initiative designed to delve into the many ways that individuals, communities, and industries are working to strengthen our collective ability to adapt, recover, and thrive in the face of today's growing environmental challenges. Throughout this impactful week, we will spotlight four dynamic speakers who will share their unique perspectives, innovative strategies, and real world solutions for building a more resilient, sustainable future. From architecture and urban planning to public policy and even farming, these thought leaders will offer valuable insights into how resilience can be thoughtfully woven into the fabric of our daily lives and long term planning. So we invite you to be part of the conversation, expand your thinking, and leave equipped with the ideas and tools to help create a stronger, more resilient world. And now I will introduce our speaker for today, our last final speaker, Farmer John Wilson. So, John Wilson, also known as Farmer John, J.D. Wilson, the later being the pen name, is a carpenter, farmer, and writer born in Indiana and a longtime resident of Virginia Beach, Virginia. He writes for the Princess Anne Independent News in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and contributed to Dreamtime, the journal of the International Association for Dreams, and for the newsletter for the Virginia Association for Biological Farming, the statewide Organic Farming Association. At this time, John continues to sell and offer professional talks following the publication of a collection of columns from the Princess Anne Independent News into a book entitled From the Ground, published in late 2022. John studied organic farming and gardening at Goddard College in the summer of 1977. In the summer of 1979, John worked under the guidance of internationally known master horticulturalist Alan Chadwick. He took intensive week-long courses with Austrian Compost compost to Siegfried and Ute Lubeck of CMC, the Controlled Microbial Composting, to study quality composting and soil science. These experiences led John to create his own farm and compost company, the New Earth Farm and Compost Company, in 1995 in Virginia Beach, Virginia. After many years' experience in farming and compost making, John wanted to learn more intensely about soil science and took an online course over a period of months in 2018 with Dr. Elaine Ingram of Soil Food Web Institute in Corvallis, Oregon. John is an avid composter, currently beginning a nonprofit called Drishti Compost in Virginia Beach to create more compost from local food waste. He continues to maintain gardens in the Tidewater region and is ready with gardening and growing advice. And he still produces food in his raised beds at home. John, thank you for being with us. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get your presentation pulled up.
Hello. Boy, I sound important after that introduction. I guess I have done a lot of things. Um, but before we get started, can everybody talk back to me if they change their setting? I have a question. I want to test everybody's farming knowledge first.
Um, John, they can't talk back, but they can put
Okay. Okay.
their answers in the
Okay. Okay.
chat box.
Well, I just want to start to see what, if y'all know what you call a cow after it's had a baby. Anybody? Decaffeinated.
That
So
was good, Farmer John.
I had to add that one in. So yeah, I'm passionate about composting and organic farming. More so now, the term regenerative agriculture than or maybe both organic and regen together. But yeah, so I guess I'll just jump right in. What's the first screen? Can you switch? Yeah. So microbes run the show. They're in everything, including our bodies. Um, you've all heard about the gut microbiome, and but they're more important in soil than people realize. And I'm talking about both bacteria and fungus. But of note to me is this last sentence that says all of life on Earth would die in 6 hours with no compost. I mean, no microbes. And I'm not a scientist in that way, that deep to say that I know that myself, but smart people said that. So we have to promote our microbes. Next. So just a little, couple of facts. I mean, imagine that 1 teaspoon has more microbes than Earth has people. And you're made up of more microbes than human cells. So we're establishing first the importance of microbes. Now, next. And that's the art I put on my wall. I don't have fine art. I don't have, you know, pretty pictures, but these are beautiful to me. These are some individual microbes that we're trying to promote in compost and soil. All right, next. So this slide was because I did a talk at a wildlife festival in VB down here. And, we all know about the food web. Not everybody knows about the soil food web. There's a whole half of life happens underground before we start seeing the bugs and birds and so forth. And they're all, dependent upon these same microbes. So um, that's how it all looks. And one example I like to use is right here, where what you're seeing is the plant asks the microbes for the food it needs for the next stage of its development. And that happens by, well, it's in another slide too, but that one teacher I had called it milk and cookies for the microbes. So there are enzymes that are based on the combination of photosynthesis. So it's liquid carbon, it's made by the leaf, and then the enzyme that's giving the bacteria and fungus the message. I'm about to make leaves. I'm about to set fruit. I'm about to make a flower. And the microbes retrieve out of the soil, assuming there's an adequate amount of microbes in the soil, the specific thing the plant asks for and needs at that moment. And I sometimes I jump past my slides, but a plant will get what, if you use chemical fertilizer, a plant will only get 10% of what you apply as it's going past the roots on its way to the river or the stream or the ditch. But if you do it with compost, you get all of the nutrition. Okay, next. Okay, that's the milk and cookies. Now, those are pictures of the endomycorrhizal fungi. They actually tap into the root. Some of the fungus goes in right into the plant, thereby extending the reach of the roots of that plant as far as that fungus goes. And I'm never sure how many of these facts I have on slides, but there's a forest in either Oregon or Washington that has one fungus, one life form that is 30 square miles large, really big. Of note there is that it can rain on half of that woods, but the whole woods gets water because the fungus allows the plant to share, and plants do share, maybe more than us humans. Um, that's just an example to me of how beautiful it is. The fungus can there's also ectomycorrhizal fungi, which stays on the outside of the roots. But I just wanted to show this. Next. That's on the right is me getting ready to take a nap on top of the finished compost. No, I'm kidding. But it's safe, clean, doesn't stink. When you do it right, and believe me, not all compost is made equal. I've studied a whole lot, and we make really good compost. But also, I'm showing there that, home bin, making it at home is good too. I mean, I can make it quicker and a little better breakdown in my system. Um, we have 55-yard long windrows. I can get whole turkeys or fish from around where we live, and you won't find evidence of them after like 4 or 5 days. Once the pile's hot, if you introduce a whole turkey, I've done this, it disappears. The thing about home composting is that it just takes longer. And then you're also going to ask your garden to kind of finish off some of the breakdown, which your soil will do, assuming you have some microbes in the soil. And okay, next. So 40% of all food goes into a landfill. And I forget the percentage of all material that goes into a landfill. Like, in other words, how much is food waste of the total, haul at the landfill? But 40% of all food that gets thrown away, ooh, that's a lot. It's a in our at least in Virginia Beach, landfills are having problems right now. Now they've made a new contract with somebody new, so we'll see what happens. But um, why you want to take it out of the landfill is because of this word right here, anaerobic breakdown. In a landfill, food waste gets trapped in plastic and furniture and who knows what, and then becomes methane, which is one of the worst offenders in the atmosphere for a gas. Um, when you make it at home aerobically, using one of the four ingredients as oxygen, it's aerobic and it breaks down better. Any smells you have with food waste disappear pretty quick. In my system, like a couple days. So let me see. Yeah, so I like to say that you all probably know this. Everything in this whole ecosystem we call Earth is in a loop, some kind of cycle, and we've kind of broken some of those cycles, like water. If all of our farmland went to this kind of farming, and farms couldn't, we can't make enough compost for all farmland. But when you cover crop, you and use no-till after anyway, I'm thinking about all the things I could say, but yeah, we could totally change the flooding problems we have. We, you know, those statistics for every 1% organic matter increase, you can increase your water holding capacity by 1 inch of rain. So if you get up to a 5% organic matter reading, you can hold a 5-inch rain. Now, we've been known to get bigger rains, but some people have gotten, I've heard of 13, 14% organic matter readings, some farms. And I put this other slide in about dinosaurs because sometimes I do this slide and I don't talk science as much, but they like to know that they're drinking the same water as dinosaurs. So all the material we have in this Earth system is the same. Same water, same everything. So it's a little extreme, this picture, um, but it's pretty accurate. I like to tell people that, you know, there's going to be a hard pan in the soil with conventional ag. There's no doubt about that. It could be 6 inches down. If they're lucky, it could be 12 inches down. On this side, you can see, I mean, we found roots in plants that go down many feet. Um, just lettuce can go down 12 to 18 inches. Tomato can go down 6 feet. And the most famous example is what's the plant I talk about? Alfalfa. Alfalfa is the greatest feed for animals. And it's been known to go down 60 feet into the soil. And all that kind of cover cropping breaks up hard pans, allowing the plants you grow, access to all kinds of things that are under in the subsoil. Um, and I like to say this sentence a lot. We have everything we need to know now to change this. But in the Farm Bill, there are all kinds of things that stop the regen ag from happening. Okay, next. And that's a good cover crop. That's crimson clover on the left. And I like to tell people that when you grow that kind of cover crop, you are growing nitrogen, and 200 pounds per acre is enough for almost any following crop. So that's why you don't have to buy chemical fertilizers. Now, I mentioned compost tea there because you can spread the benefit of good composting much further by making tea and spraying it on the plants. But guess what else? It's beautiful. Look at that. I love that. When cover crops are blooming, and that's about the time you want to either roll or crimp it or turn it under. And once you get a good soil system established, you don't have to till. Maybe some people will still till maybe every 5 or 10 years, but a lot of this means you don't have to till. And over tilling and overgrazing are the two biggest problems for good soil. Okay, that's actually me putting another slideshow together. And let's see go to the next one. That's just somebody putting in food scraps. We have a tractor that does it, but I wanted to show somebody putting in food scraps in a just made compost pile. Yeah, I wanted people to know that everything we do is exactly the way nature does it. We're just speeding it up and adding all of the microbes. Um, Not every natural ecosystem would have all the microbes. Um, Next. So the four ingredients to a good compost are carbon, nitrogen, water, and air. Air being oxygen. We don't want anaerobic, but you got to mix the carbon and nitrogen just right. Browns to greens. Grass clippings are good. They have to be put in right away because they release quickly. So you have to match slow release carbon. An example would be tree waste with slow release nitrogen or fast release with each other. But we turn this kind of pile, this will be the first day it's been turned. Um, every day for 2 weeks to make sure it stays aerobic. All right, next. And we can, that's my turner. Now, a home composter should not, add meat and a few other things to their compost. They don't break down quick in a home compost setting quick enough. So you'd attract rodents. But I can add meat, everything they say not to put in compost. But this compost turner is made in Austria and is really efficient at turning the stuff on the bottom will be on the top, outside will be inside, and it throws it up in the air because the CO2 that's starting to form drains out here. It's a heavier gas than oxygen. Now oxygen comes in. Um, and right there, we don't have a real efficient system for watering. That's an old farm where I had a 5,000-gallon water tank. I believe everybody, this kind of applies to architecture, but I think every house, every building should collect its own water and use it for gray water or plants that are outside. I used mine for the compost. I hardly ever had to use the well to water my compost. And that's just the way I spread it. That's a lime spreader, but I used it for compost. And I just want to make you see that it's pretty easy at home. Get a shovel, a wheelbarrow, build a bin. All right, next. Um, yeah, so the way you can make bad compost, let it go anaerobic. Let it get stinky. Your senses can tell you. Uh, you can pick it up and see if it's too wet or too dry just by picking it up and squeezing it. Water comes out, it's too wet. If it crumbles back apart, it's too dry. But if it stays in a clump in your hand, just right. But there's a lot of not great compost out there because a lot of people, it's making compost is just about managing waste. If they make it just a little bit stable, then that's good enough. Our system, we do go for really high quality. So, yeah, why is it so good to make compost? I already said one, divert food waste from the landfill. That's a big deal. We should be doing that in every city, every community. Community as big as ours, I think there should be 10 composting facilities around here. You also save the nutrients and put them back in the they automatically go in the compost by all the things we put in. Improves soil structure and reduces runoff. So I might have already said this, but the soil becomes a sponge. That thing I said about how much water it'll hold, it just sucks it up and holds it. Some carbon is blown off in the making of compost, but you save a lot more. And the carbon benefit becomes really expanded when you use it in the soil. Um, the neutralizing toxins, microbes know how to pick apart toxic material, all except for a few, like they call them forever chemicals. What's the name of that one? I forget. Huh? I don't remember the name of it, but Teflon is made of this stuff. And the microbes in compost can't break that apart. So then you're reducing the food waste. You can clean the air and water because the water that can then pass into and you can charge the soil when it does finally make it into the water system, it is cleaner. Um, and if you overpower your soil system with beneficial microbes, they outcompete disease organisms. And there's lots of studies about that. I'll put some of those studies in my PowerPoint in the future. Next. Yeah, 6 to 8 weeks. That's really fast. Partly because one of the byproducts of cell metabolism of a microbe is heat, just like our body is maintained, at its temperature because of cell metabolism. Our temperatures get up to 145, and that's because all of a sudden I've got billions of new microbes in that compost pile. Now, in a home composting system, you might want to let your compost sit around for a little bit longer, like maybe 6 months or so, which is okay. I'm just showing some examples of how you can use it there. And the primary nutrition I use is compost and cover crops. And I've already said all this. Okay, next. So, why isn't everyone doing this? Well, making compost and having your farm smell like food waste for a couple of days when you first make one is not sexy. A lot of people don't care much about it. Chris, how am I doing on time? How much more time do I have? Well, okay, go ahead. Next.
Sorry, I think you're fine. You got like at least 2 minutes.
How much more time?
10 minutes
Okay.
before Q&A.
Okay. So we're looking for a lot of support to change the regs. They want to regulate us as a landfill because it's waste out of a food thing. Now, we do get these great big trucks filled with 10,000 pounds of food waste each delivery we get. But I'm not a landfill. I don't want to take people's junk. I only want to take organic compostable. And that's DEQ. Everybody's afraid of composting for some reason, but we're working on it. But getting a system, I say it's expensive, but it's one of those things where startup cost is expensive and much more education needs to happen around it. But yeah, we're working on that. We're working on all our city council people and DEQ. We're part of Compost Council, and we're trying to change some of those regs and make people see how safe it is and how beneficial it is. All right, next. You don't need to know all this, I don't think. Um, but we also do a lot of education at Drishti of all levels. We've had college kids, we've had military groups, we've had little kids like that who just want to jump around and play in the dirt. Now, we don't call our compost dirt. We don't call the soil we make dirt. Dirt is what you sweep off the kitchen floor. The soil is the living skin of the earth. But yeah, we do a lot of education for kids and help schools start their own composting systems. And that's fun. We love our field trips. Um, we are a nonprofit, and nobody's figured out how to make a ton of money making compost. So we do rely, and could happen in the future, but right now we rely on some donations. We still make a lot of income. The income is barely enough to meet our need. It keeps the doors open. The donations help us go further and improve our systems. And okay, so time for questions. Anybody have any questions for me? Your mic's off, Chris.
Sorry, now I have some questions I wrote down for you. I was trying to see if there was the Q&A uh, part, but I don't see that anywhere. So, um, I'll just go ahead and go through my list of questions, unless somebody else chimes in. If you have questions, you can just write them in the chat, and I'll get to them as they pop up. But to start, John, how do you say that composting and organic farming adds to the resiliency of a community?
Well, um, I forget the term. Oh, sustainable ag. Sometimes use that word. Sustainable ag is the farming you're doing able to be used long into the future? And right now, the answer is no. Chemicals I don't know this because I don't use it, but some people say the phosphorus we're using on farms right now in chemical farming settings is being depleted at a rate that's, they can see the end point. But if you get back in the cycle, like I talked about the cycle, where you're growing nitrogen, you're growing phosphorus, you're growing potassium, which there's a lot more to it than those three, but those are three people talk about the most. So resilience means the part about reducing material in the landfill. It means getting a farming system that can be done for years into the future. And the Chinese composted, and their farming systems have lasted. I don't know this history, so somebody could read up on this, but they say 5,000 years. Some of their farming systems and composting systems are as old as 5,000 years. Now, I'm not a
Wow.
historian, so I can't verify that, but
What is your opinion on hydroponics? I think a lot of times there might be these kind of futuristic hydroponic farms that they say could run on robots or something in the future. What is your take on hydroponics versus organic farming?
well, I believe in soil, number one. Some of the microbial activity I talked about with the milk and cookies going down into the plant roots, and then the microbes retrieving the nutrients. Um,
Hmm.
that's important to me. Now, hydroponic, they are working on some of that microbial activity in the water, but plants evolved in soil, not in water. Now, there's a place for
Hmm.
hydroponics, um, but I'm not a proponent of it. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about it, but except one thing I don't know how it is today, but the last time I read a study about hydroponics is they grew it out to seed and they had a 50% loss of seed viability, first generation. And I don't know
Wow.
if that's still true, but to me, that already speaks volumes. Hydroponics has a limit. Um,
Hmm.
but again,
Claude had a question.
go ahead.
So you mentioned getting truckloads of waste. Could you speak more about the collection infrastructure and how you procure your compostable material?
Well, we have a third party collection system, and people have to pay for this service. And they are called NOPE. They're headquartered in Richmond, and NOPE stands for Natural Organic Processing Enterprises, I think. But they have trucks that collect and dump, and it has a lift gate. And so, and they charge for their service. They also pay us a tipping fee out of what they collect. They collect enough to pay us that tipping fee and still make their own money. But I wouldn't be collecting all this food waste without a third party collection agency, and they're really valuable to us, and we like them a lot. But yeah, we actually have
Uh,
two.
um,
Go ahead.
oh, no, no, I was going to ask another question, so you can finish your thought.
I've already forgotten what I was going to say.
Well, Sorry. In your education about learning how to make compost, did you ever start any compost fires?
No. So there's two things with that. One is I are described four ingredients: carbon, nitrogen, water, and air. So water,
Hmm.
if it's 50% moisture, it's not going to catch on fire. If you leave a pile too dry for too long, but there's still, and more so in anaerobic decomposition, you can start a fire. But that's not going to happen in the way I do it. So no, but it's
All
possible.
right, and then Francis Treves had a question. How do communities start to budget for diversion of food waste at scale to to be a competitive alternative to corporate city waste haulers such as waste management? So does waste management have a corporate board that would listen if there was money to be made that would help the planet?
Ah, boy, that's a big question. That
That's a
that's
good question. Yeah.
that's the $1 million question. But now I will say there are communities that do this, and they did put it in their tax. Um, I don't know what Chesapeake did with their money, but they started a tax on cigarettes on to do good things for the environment. Now, it's been quite a few years since I've been up on that, but in New York, they're doing it, in Chicago, in the Bay Area, in California. There's lots of communities who do this. And there are a few private enterprises that have figured out how to make enough money to make it at scale. But somebody's got to pay for it, and it's very, very important that it gets done. And I'm just not the person that knows the finances. If we took all the food waste out of the landfill, would that save them enough money to pay for composting? Not at first. You'd have to buy the equipment and get up to snuff on the whole thing. But that is a discussion for people other than me. The young people, you young people, have to figure that out. But I mean, we're making it.
You mentioned the term hard pan. Can you talk about more what hard pan is?
Well, a hard pan is when you have a certain kind of tillage, it
Hmm.
scrapes along at a certain depth. Let's say it's 6 inches. Right at that point of 6 inch tillage, it compacts soil. Not to mention you know, how do I say it? The enormous tractors that are used now that are riding across the soil. So you have a
Hmm.
hard pan. So now water can't go through that. That's why the first farm I was on, it was conventionally farmed, and I could and 1/4 inch rain, and the rain would puddle up. It was crusty, and there was a hard pan. Um, but you can have another hard pan, a chemical hard pan. If you already have a physical hard pan, the chemicals you apply can settle in that physical hard pan and create a toxic layer. The roots come to and go, whoa, what's all this stuff down there? What's all these pesticides and herbicides and chemicals. So you can have a physical hard pan by just compressing the soil too much.
Mhm.
And the chemical hard pan
Interesting.
adds insult to injury.
Um, could you talk more about the idea of compost tea, about what that is?
Well, yeah, you drink it in the afternoons. No, I'm kidding. You don't drink it. Everybody don't go home and make it and drink it, okay? Although it'd be healthy for you, probably. I've never tried it. So, compost tea. You can take a little unit of compost, and I like compost and worm castings together. I have a 30-gallon tea brewer. Put those in a nylon bag that's open. Put a little bit of microbe food in there. It doesn't take much. And then aerate. So if you aerate from the bottom, so it bubbles for 12 hours, you can increase the number of microbes by some uncountable order of magnitude. And then spray it on, well, then you can dilute it. I dilute mine 2 to 1 water to compost tea, and then put a backpack sprayer. But people use bigger sprayers or even smaller ones. And this is another thing you can do at home. There are home compost tea brewers. But because we know so much about microbes and biology now, you spray it on leaf
Hmm.
surfaces, and I think it's called the stomata on the bottom of the leaf is a pore that receives air and other things from the atmosphere. But so you spray on top and bottom of the leaves, and you get more of that disease resistance, more of the what do you call it? The transformative power of turning organic matter into nutrients. So you can turn a little clump of compost into a big effect on your farm of beneficial microbes.
Interesting. Cool. Can you talk about the importance of carbon sequestration?
Well, every life form that you see, every tree, every plant, every body has carbon. So carbon is essential. And I mentioned not creating methane by taking food waste out of the landfill. Well, you also can keep some of the CO2 out of the atmosphere quite a bit. In fact, I forget the numbers now. I should have boned up on this, but if all farming in just the US went to this kind of farming, we could neutralize not adding any more CO2 to the atmosphere. So that carbon sequestration is you can just plant a tree and you'll sequester some carbon. But we're still cutting more trees than we're planting in this country. And boy, doing this talk makes me think I need to do a little more research to make sure I'm up to speed on all the current research. But they say with microbes and a good crop, you can save as much carbon as by planting a tree. So between the two on the farmland and the tree, we could begin to reverse the CO2 in the atmosphere. It would still
Uh-huh.
take a long time, and some people say we're past some tipping point, but we can make it, equalize, not add any more CO2 to the atmosphere,
Right.
not add any more methane. But it's only with these farming systems and the making of compost.
Cool. And then I don't see any more questions in the chat, so I'll ask one final question. Where can we buy your compost?
Blue light special today only. Well, we're in Virginia Beach. I don't know if everybody on this thing is where everybody is, but um, yeah, just look on that slide that shows Drishti Compost, and we have a website, and you can call us. You can order online. Um, we sell it by the yard. You can either pick it up or we can deliver. There's a delivery fee. We also make what I think is a really special product, which has about 80% R compost, has a little bit of biochar. It's another whole topic. How many more hours do y'all have? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, biochar goes deep.
Yeah, but we have biochar that's charged again with microbes. And in there, we have also worm castings and also trace minerals. And this product,
Mhm.
wow, does it grow some good stuff. But we have 25-pound bags, 50-pound bags, the soil boost, which I just mentioned, or by the yard. And
Uh, I was gonna say our another question just came through, so this will be the last one from Francis again. So this says example. Can a single family suburban half-acre lot collect leaves and home vegetative matter in a 12 by 12 wire compost bin and create enough compost to use within their garden? It would seem that the ecological damage that is consistently wasted in communities that collect leaves and food waste need not be diverted at all and is a huge waste of fuel to collect it. Are there any studies or efficacy in this strategy? So everyone having kind of their own compost bin instead of having to collect.
well, I heard about 3 or 4 questions in there. But I will say we teach home composting because we believe in home composting as much as we believe in making compost professionally. Now, a 12 by 12 bin is too big. Rather, you would want, say, 3 4 by 4 bins. So you could do one, let it sit, make another one, fill it up. But um, being responsible, number one, for your own waste. If all your food waste went to your compost system in your backyard, all your leaves, I'm a big proponent of that idea. That's number one. Um, Even though I think you can make better compost the way I do it, you can still make good enough compost to grow your own food and make sure um, that your soil has enough microbes. You might have to work on a little bit at first to let the soil finish composting if you don't have good finished compost. Um, what there was another question in there. I heard several questions.
Uh, do, do leaves require a lot more storage?
Well, no, here's the thing about leaves. Um, Trees pull up more trace minerals. So in the leaves, part of the color in fall is the trace minerals still in the leaves. So you're adding trace minerals, which is really good. And if you store the leaves, because you need more carbon to nitrogen, store the leaves every time you put food scraps in, put another layer of leaves in. Now, I also like wheat straw because it's more porous, allows more oxygen. But I put leaves in almost every pile I make. So, but you have to store your carbon and use it every time you put food scraps in. You cannot have a compost system of all food scraps or all nitrogen. You will have a stink and a mess. A mess. Uh,
All right. Well, it is just after 1, so we're gonna wrap up. Thank you, John, for your time today. I look forward to getting some of your compost into my garden.
okay.
And thanks to everybody who attended today and attended throughout the week. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to kick it me to close us out. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Farmer John. And yeah, as Chris said, thank you everyone for attending this week for Resiliency Week and learning all about different things with resiliency. So we will do this again next year. So be on the lookout. And thanks again. Have a wonderful long weekend. Take care. Bye bye.